Yeah, so thank you for the invitation. It's a pity that we can't meet in person. It's over Zoom, but yeah, due to the times. But also, it might be fun to have the whole presentation done on screen and then talk it over. Uh, so basically, I will be talking about AI and how it influenced journalism, but it's only part of the story because uh, my background is first of all in mathematics, then in machine learning, but I also was and still I am a keen writer. I have written 2 novels in Polish, one in English, and I keep on writing. So that's why with this set of ideas around writing and around automating content generation, it all comes to one place for me. So I will start with like trying to discuss in general how uh, journalists approach news stories, but it's not about journalists uh, in the end. It's also about different aspects of how you create stories, whether that's for marketing purposes or like whether you have an e-commerce shop and you have like millions of products and you want to generate descriptions, or like you're writing your own blog. There are plenty of applications there. So first of all, even though you might think that journalists are not really that automated, actually automated news are already here, and they come mostly uh, in from the finance, because probably you of course know Bloomberg Terminal and Reuters. They were one of the first to have this automated news bot who are looking for different triggers, and once they find some anomalies, or for example they read through the company's report quickly, they generate a story. So that was something which first emerged in finance, and it hugely influenced the market. There were some studies, for example, showing that before, for example, for the smaller companies on the New York Stock Exchange, before they received any coverage, there were problems with liquidity. But once those news bots were writing about even like small pieces of content about the company's reports, like the finances, suddenly that boosted liquidity by many percent. Uh, so it's already interesting and influencing the finance market. Of course, the weather news, and weather news and traffic news, that's also automated in most of the countries right now, because those kind of news are pretty boring for uh, normal journalists, because you keep on writing the same story over and over. It's just a template, and you need to import data to fill that template. Also, a funny case from my perspective is journalism on local sports. So writing about, for example, football matches in like very small niche leagues somewhere in the countryside. And apparently Sweden is leading here. So Klaxpark is totally automated uh, media company where they actually publish stories about really small leagues, small players, and uh, it's really interesting because that helps drive traffic to those websites, uh, like almost double the traffic thanks to all the fans of those niche teams. So it's already happening. And coming from that perspective, if you think about the workflow of how the story emerges, how it happens, then it starts with an idea and ends in distribution of the text. But we have something which is more probably familiar to us all as data scientists, meaning that the first part of the process is data mining and choosing data sources, cleaning, processing data, analyzing it. Then it comes to creation of content. You want to probably, if you have the data, if you have like the idea for the story and data to back that story with numbers, then the next step is actually to write the text. And here's the couple of questions, like what should be the angle of the story, what are the main characters, how you'd like your audience to react to that. So that's the content box here. And then the last part is the distribution, whether you're publishing that in a magazine or should that be like a social media post, tweet somewhere. That's also part of the process. So what I'm going to talk here is mostly about the content part. So I'm assuming that you have all the data and you were able to do your analysis, because content is actually probably the hardest. And due to the recent breakthroughs in text processing, especially from the last year, which I will mention, like GPT-2, Megatron, Turing NLG, and a couple other models, we are probably at the phase where we can heavily disrupt the content phase of this journalistic workflow. And that's what I'm going to talk about mostly right now. So coming to the next, I'm going to focus and narrow my perspective just to content. So I'm assuming that you have the data and you know how to distribute, and you just want to write your story, whether that be, like journalistic story, but as I said, also generating, for example, descriptions of thousands of products you have as an e-commerce. That's also part of this content automation. So this might be something which is more relevant to, for example, your clients, because this is something that I've seen a couple of times that, for example, like there's a marketplace or there's an e-commerce shop, and they tend to have like literally millions of products and with new arrivals every single day. So they try to do some kind of a content spinning in order to get like new descriptions to boost the SEO, but that doesn't work that well, because if you use like those standard techniques of like trying to look up the word in thesaurus and change that for something else, then probably you just get, sometimes you get good things, but most of the time you just get nonsensical words. And that's not the best solution, but they do that anyway, because at this scale, it's hard to do something else. So that's part of the process, because so assuming that you have already cleaned data, what really matters when it comes to writing down the story is having a good template for it. So when you think about it from the perspective of machine learning, it's all about trying to generate words. I don't know what's your exactly experience with things like recurrent neural networks or LSTMs, where you're able to actually generate, like predict the next word. Transformers also work this way, but the idea that you can predict the next word is already there for a couple of years, and it's working pretty fine. The newest breakthroughs are also based on that. The only problem is that they tend not to keep the placeholders in place, meaning that they can arbitrarily change your tokens. So for example, if you were writing about iPhone and suddenly the whole thing flips and starts writing about, I don't know, Windows Phone or something totally different, but maybe in similar category. So that's a problem when it comes to those kind of models. And this is the problem we're trying to solve. So what I'm doing right now and what I'm building right now is a solution to actually address this problem and try to automate template creation using a bunch of techniques from machine learning. So if I want to go back to this recent breakthroughs in language and natural language processing. So basically, if you were to automate this data to templates, so try to automate the whole process of writing stories, then you have to go deeper into the language. I don't know how many of you are familiar with those models from OpenAI, NVIDIA, or Microsoft, which I mentioned at the bottom. So those are GPT-2, Megatron, and Turing NLG, with Turing being the largest. But those were really a great breakthroughs in terms of like how good text you can generate just from a simple prompt. So as a prompt, you're giving a sentence, and basically it's like a standard technique for trying to predict the next word. But models are so big and they are trained on really like extremely large data sets. They're extremely good. And so if you Google the first blog post from OpenAI about GPT-2, you'll be able to see that. Basically, the idea behind it was that let's take all the articles which are ranked positive from Reddit and train the machine on that to predict the next word. And apparently, this technique allowed to really well, and the articles you're getting when it comes to general knowledge are really good. And once you start adding more parameters, because those models tend to be bigger and bigger, so the last one is basically the G trained by Microsoft. It's also a transformer-based model. So transformer is a technique in deep learning. It's an architecture for text processing, and it has over 17 billion parameters that you train. And the amount of training that needs is just massive. So they even invented this deep speed library to make the computations parallel. So that's really interesting. But the fun thing is that thanks to the largeness of this model, apparently you're able to even answer questions about the general knowledge. You can just ask questions. Like if your prompt is, for example, when the Second World War ended, then it answers it ended in 1945. Basically, without any addition to just training the text. So having that as an input, like.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you please elaborate a bit more on the transformers and what is this dramatic difference compared to the language models that we had previously in the deep learning?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm thinking whether that will be quite technical. Because
in plain terms, if possible.
Yeah, I'm thinking whether. So in the best way to say that is that they have this attention module, and they're a little bit better at. Okay, so taking a step back, the largest problem so far with those language models was that they were very quickly losing the context. So just like with this example I said about, like you could they could start writing a text about, for example, phones, but then switch to, I don't know, like elections in the US to that extent. Like that could be totally random, especially if you have like 500 words and you want to generate this longer text. And what transformers are doing is, because of some of the intricacies of the model, they are able to hold this context a little bit longer. It's still like not that long, but thanks to just the small improvement and the fact that they are trained, also the the whole hardware on which they're trained is much better. You see this compounded increase of quality with time. So that's like a very vague explanations why they tend to be better. But transformers are pretty technical when it comes to what's inside and how you build the whole architecture. Also, they're like,
yeah,
yeah. So that's why I probably should put like the diagram of like how this looks like, but I decided that's like, like it would take me at least 10 minutes to probably go over that, and that will totally destroy the flow of what I want to say. But definitely have a look at that, because that's like, using transformers are around for quite some time, but it's a little bit like with deep learning and ImageNet for the first time, meaning that you only see this amazing, you started to see these amazing results only last year, and they are still not fully commercialized. It's mostly research. There are a bunch of research groups doing that, but that's it. And it's still like there's large potential to apply that in various commercial applications. And I'm talking about one of them right now, but there are like plenty of more stuff like that. because in the end, if you are able to write coherent text and you don't have to train from and you don't have to engineer every single template of like Q&A question, then that just saves you a lot of time. Yeah, so that's the technical part. But yeah, basically that's what I wanted to say next, basically the applications of that. And yeah, also a similar case with GANs, so generative adversarial networks, and when it comes to generate like deepfakes and stuff like that. This as well is the similar technology, meaning that research is quite far away from commercial applications right now, and it's really interesting to try to do something tangible and of commercial value with that. Yeah, so right now I'm going to give you some of the examples of how what I did with all this set of ideas, because it started basically last year when I decided, okay, like those things are amazing and I want to have to try to look at it and see what can be done. And that was before I had this idea for Contentyze. So Contentyze is to be the content generation platform that I'm building together with my team. And that was even before that, what I try to do, like fun stuff, and see what will happen when I try to automate the journalistic workflow. And the first thing was Petacrunch.com. So that I basically launched a semi-automated website with AI journalists, meaning that the flow of emails was totally automated, and those AI journalists were able to interview over 1,000 startups in just 3 months around the world. So basically, the automation process was going into scraping the data, sending the emails, and then the very, very basic interaction. Unfortunately, it was semi-automated, meaning that in the end, I had to put all those interviews on the website, which was quite a pain in the end. As you can imagine, I probably have managed only to do like 600 interviews so far on the website, and have 400 interviews waiting for me to put it up online. But you can check the website, petacrunch.com, and you will see what's going on. Basically, those like startups which raised between $1 million to like $200 million, I guess, in total. And those are like basically quick Q&As with mostly. So that was the first fun thing that I did. It hasn't used any of the GPT-2 models, so like transformers, but it was mostly on the software engineering side. And then I came to the other part, and I started to tinker around with this text generation, because that's what's the most interesting to me. And the effect of that is basically Contentyze, and it's still an ongoing thing. The product we're building basically will be available to journalists, and the idea is that you will be able to have you'll be able to boost your marketing team or your journalistic team to work faster. And so far, I have used it for myself, meaning that the text I have generated, I publish on my blog, and basically I was able to put like 200 texts in 6 months, which were, I guess, of higher quality than just like random ramblings of a machine that you would expect. So the idea is this: you're trying to automate the template creation and make the whole process of journalism much faster, and basically save time on things which are repetitive. So thinking about it like in like general terms, I believe that what will come next when it comes to this text generation models is basically kind of integration between human and machine, and that would show me like those different tests that I did with those models basically showed me that they are not always perfect. You have to do a little bit of cherry picking when you want to have high quality text, unless you're writing about something very tangible and there's a template to it. So that's why you can probably commercialize right now things like writing descriptions for e-commerce shops, or different kind of news which are repetitive, like weather news, traffic, different local news, different events also, but also you can make those texts much better than they were before, because right now how it's done, if it's done at all in a given media company, it's basically you write the whole template by yourself, you give it a little bit of variance and manually, and you put a little bit of randomization to it. And thanks to transformers, you will be able to just put placeholders in place and let the machine fill in the gaps. So another thing which I don't mention here, but which is also relevant, is how you try to do text summarization. So especially if you have clients in like auditing, because even before that, so where I started and what I started thinking about those set of ideas was working with one of the big four companies, and they were trying to build a tool for the consultants to search through different tax documents and different tax legislation much faster. And I had like a couple of clients like that who were trying to, have like a library of between 50 to 100,000 documents. And the whole idea is that they want to have a mechanism to understand those documents faster, being able to serve them faster to their consultants whenever they do a research. And that's related also to those models and to those language models, because right now with transformers, what you can do is you can make much better text summarization and much better suggestions for similar content. So whenever you do a search, so it's like Google on steroids on your internal database. That's what transformers are giving you. So that's also one of the commercial applications, which will be there soon, I guess. And again, this is part of this integration human machine that I mentioned and automation of repetitive tasks. So what I see this going is basically enhancing some of the RPA systems, so robotic process automation, because you will be able to give much more of a natural language understanding to those tools, and hence boost some of the tasks, make some of the tasks available for automation, which wasn't there before. So there are much more applications coming along the way besides media and marketing, but that will take some time probably. Yeah, so that's basically the set of ideas. What I wanted to recommend you in the end is if you want to go particularly and understand how it works with media, there are 2 recent books and 1 blog. So 2 books are Automating the News. This is really great. This is from the last year. I really enjoyed this one. Basically, the author goes through different examples of how currently media companies are using automation. It doesn't have any background in machine learning. So if you're coming from the data science machine learning perspective, then probably some of the things he says will be naive to you. But it's for me, it was very eye-opening when it comes to the journalistic perspective and what's important for journalists actually to have when it comes to tools. The second one, I have bought it, but I haven't read it yet. This is the Newsmakers, and it was released, I guess, like last month or something. And it's another book about how you automate the media. And finally, there's 1 blog basically running and written by a senior journalist from, I guess, like Washington Post, New York Times. And he's basically writing how robots are taking over his job, and he's giving like, he's doing a weekly newsletter giving examples of what happened this week. So it's also like a nice source of information coming from the journalistic perspective. Yeah, and basically that's it. That's the whole story I wanted to present to you today. So if you have any questions, let me know. Happy to have a contact. That's my email. And happy to engage in the discussion. Thank you.